Almost live from Kinsella Hall, it's December 1st. STU Journalism and the New Brunswick Beacon present The Basement Tapes.
Hi, I'm Kevin Stewart.
And I'm Tony Peter Paul.
And I'm Kyle Douglas. And welcome to this week's edition of The Basement Tapes.
We've got some great stories for you this week, including
St. Thomas helping students prepare for life after graduation. Speed networking may give them the boost they need for the workforce.
a downtown advertising campaign that is using the power of social media and bloggers to attract shoppers.
And one of our own reporters visits the local clinic, clearing up some misunderstandings about the flu shot. We've all heard how hard it can be for university graduates to find a job. Teaming up with a mentor provides students with the advice they need to enter the workforce. St. Thomas University recently held a networking conference to give students a leg up on the competition. Vanessa Cormier reports.
Switch! On your marks. Get set. Network. Most people have heard of speed dating, but St. Thomas University is introducing students to speed networking. The Student Life and Retention Office is partnering with Alumni Affairs to help students make connections to help find work after graduation. The event was held Wednesday at the Forest Hill Conference Center. Organizers Carrie Monteith Levesque and Wanda Barstow explain how alumni can help students.
Connect with somebody here and help to guide them into a career that they're interested in and help them know what direction to take, where they should be, what types of courses and where they should be looking at. So
just not just to build the relationship, but to maintain that relationship. Even if it's one person they meet here tonight that they can establish that connection with and then carry that on throughout their academic and career, that would be fantastic.
17 alumni attended the event. Students had 4 minutes to chat with each STU graduate. Politicians, lawyers, journalists, teachers, and social workers were represented, just to name a few. Matt DeCourcy works for the Child and Youth Advocate in New Brunswick. He had a few words of advice for students with a liberal arts background.
Don't settle for something that doesn't interest you, and take opportunity of all the small experiences that avail themselves to you. If it's not work right away, go and travel and volunteer. Just be interested in what you do.
Dozens of students showed up to make connections. Third-year student Victoria Blakely was one of them. She felt the experience was valuable.
I met one guy who did a political science degree and is now doing public relations, and it's something that really interests me, and to see how those connections are made, how you can go from a liberal arts degree and work in the business world, fine. It just really opened my eyes up to the many possibilities that are out there.
For STU Journalism, I'm Vanessa Cormier.
It only takes an afternoon at the Regent Mall to see that holiday shopping is in full swing, but there's a new advertising campaign in town. It uses social media junkies and $1,500 to lure shoppers out of the mall and into the downtown area. With more on the story, here's Whitney Nielsen.
With less than a month until Christmas, local businesses are struggling to attract shoppers and compete with the low prices of big box stores. Downtown Fredericton Incorporated hopes to change that with a new campaign called Bring It Downtown. They gave 15 bloggers $100 each to spend at downtown stores. The catch? They had to document their entire shopping trip. They chose Ryan Barton as one of the bloggers. You might know him better as Crash, a radio host on the Fox. He headed downtown on Black Friday to spend his downtown dollars.
But yeah, I definitely think it's important to give back to the community that you're living in and the people that there's that kind of hometown connection and friendly, local atmosphere that you get that is maybe not necessarily lacking because the big chains hire local people. So I guess maybe it's not so much that, it's just that, these guys are trying to make their money, whereas if you look at it and you go, wow, the big corporation, they're getting their money no matter what.
First stop, Backstreet Records. He bought a CD for himself, but said he could have spent the whole $100 there. Next stop, Tony's Music Box for some guitar strings. And finally, after a couple unsuccessful stores, Strange Adventures for a secret Christmas gift. Shasta Stairs coordinated the Bring It Downtown campaign. She says it's helping to reacquaint people with the downtown businesses.
There's so many places to go and so many things to do. You can do everything that you need to do downtown. You can do everything from get your groceries across the street at Victory to you know, take a yoga class.
The downtown stores have unique products you can't buy anywhere else in Fredericton. But for some shoppers, the prices can be too high.
It is difficult sometimes to buy local, but I would argue that, you know, you can always make small efforts here and there. So when you can buy local, choose to buy local.
Black Friday sales seem to have convinced more shoppers to do just that, buy local. For STU Journalism, I'm Whitney Nielsen.
Fredericton residents were treated to another epic Battle of the Hill recently, as the University of New Brunswick and St. Thomas battled it out for campus pride. They are the only two teams in the Atlantic Conference that share the same campus. Justin Marshall has more.
The Battle of the Hill happened yet again in Fredericton, resulting in the University of New Brunswick varsity Reds defeating the St. Thomas Tommies 5-3. The Reds continued their streak to 28 straight games, defeating the Tommies in every Battle of the Hill since 2006. Dave Kilfoyle, a fan of the varsity Reds hockey team, has been going to the Battle of the Hill since the late 80s. He says it isn't as big as it used to be.
Well, back in the day, it was the biggest deal in town. You come down here in the LBR, you wouldn't be able to move. People would be standing. You know, you'd be wondering where the fire marshal was. So when I was a student, it meant a lot. In the late 90s, it meant a lot. I mean, it's just in the last few years that, I don't think it's meant a lot for the fans.
The Battle of the Hill has been going on between UNB and St. Thomas hockey teams since the 1970s. UNB has defeated St. Thomas 61 more times than St. Thomas has defeated them. The record between the two teams in 146 regular season games in the AUS is 101-40-5.
Head coach of the varsity Reds, Gardner McDougall, has been coaching UNB since the year 2000. He says it's always exciting to play against St. Thomas.
They're neat moments. You know, I mean, where else, you know, in the CIS do you have two campuses, 500 meters apart that play in rinks, on the same campus literally, and really it's pure pride in the line.
No member of the current roster for the varsity Reds has ever lost to St. Thomas, and the last time STU beat UNB in a regular season game was October 20th of 2006 at the York Arena. The Battle of the Hill always draws a big crowd. The attendance last night was 1,100, jam-packed in the Lady Beaverbrook rink. Next week on December 2nd, UNB takes on St. Thomas yet again, but on the varsity Reds' home turf. Justin Marshall, STU Journalism, Fredericton.
Well, it's not all bad news for St. Thomas sports teams. The university recently announced that the women's rugby team will make the leap to AUS competition. The track and field team will also make the leap after being primarily an off-season work program for the cross-country team. Matt Tidcombe reports.
St. Thomas University announced on Monday that the women's rugby team will be making the switch to AUS competition. They had recently been competing in the ACAA and won their second straight championship last month. However, leading up to that season, they have been competing in pre-season games against AUS competition and picked up a victory over Acadia during the process. Athletics Director Mike Eagles says the move is a natural fit while allowing the team to compete for a national championship. St. Thomas will also be adding a new track and field team which will also compete in the AUS, joining their cross-country counterparts. The track and field team will compete in an indoor season that begins at the conclusion of the cross-country season and will run until March. Eagles says the move will provide more opportunities to student athletes. Back to you.
Well, with winter upon us, Fredericton skateboarders are being left out in the cold. The province's only indoor skate park is in Moncton, 2 hours away. Karenisia Intiar has more.
Snow is here. For skateboarders in most of New Brunswick, that means no more skating till spring. Tom Bateman is a skateboarder from Fredericton. He says lack of indoor skate parks here makes it difficult for skaters to practice in winter.
It's hard in Atlantic Canada. There's one indoor skateboard park. It's in Moncton, and basically, the skateboarders from anywhere from the Atlantic provinces all drive there, carpool and drive there a couple times every winter. Other than that, it's nearly impossible.
Fredericton only has 2 skate parks. Both are outdoors. The cold is not a big deal. Skateboards are quite resilient. But the snow and water is a problem. 14-year-old Nick McGregor has to use what's available around him to skate on.
Usually in the winter, I just don't skateboard. Sometimes in my shed, but not that fun, but it's better than nothing.
Fredericton invested a lot in recreational venues, but not in skate parks. This skate park on Kimball Court is made of cheap material. Some ramps have cracks and are dangerous even without snow. For now, in most of New Brunswick, the sport is over till spring. For STU Journalism, I'm Hare NTR.
Victims of last week's fire on Regent Street lost everything when their apartment was burnt to the ground. Now the community is helping them to recover. Alicia Bosch has the story.
It's the end of the semester, and students are dealing with the stress of term papers and final exams. But some students are facing a different kind of stress when their apartment building on the corner of Charlotte and Regent Streets burned to the ground and they lost everything. But friends, family, and the St. Thomas University community have stepped in to help them.
We have a pretty good sense from the 4 students that they're very appreciative of the St. Thomas community and its quick response. And it's the season. And it's a crisis, and this is what we do at St. Thomas.
The university offered the students a free room and residence until Christmas and a temporary meal card to have as they recover from their losses. They also received a $750 bursary from the university, and the STU Alumni Association will provide them with some funds. But even though they lost their home, the students still stayed dedicated to their schoolwork.
And one of the 4 students had a memory stick and held it up proudly and said, I still have my 12-page essay on this. And she blew it like it was a revolver. So the soot came out, but it still worked, she told me.
Stacy Budd lives in Vanier Hall and has been collecting donations for her friend, who used to live in the building. She was not expecting much of a response, but has been amazed at the outpouring of generosity from other residents.
One girl donated a huge box of clothes, and they were all really nice, like hundreds of dollars worth of clothing and food and hair stuff and stuff you wouldn't think of, like dishes and sneakers and boots and mittens. It's awesome.
It's going to take a long time to recover from their loss, but with the help of friends and family, the people who lived in this apartment building are starting to rebuild their lives. For STU Journalism, I'm Alicia Bosch.
First Nations chiefs in New Brunswick have filed a lawsuit in federal court over the government's attacks on the poor. The federal government has devised a plan that will drastically reduce social allowances on reserves. The plan, they say, will increase incentives for First Nations citizens on welfare to pursue employment. First Nations chiefs say they want to work with the federal government, but are concerned over the negative effects this policy will have on their reserves. Chief George Ganesh from Eel Ground First Nation said, in many of our communities, unemployment is over 50%. Now they're going to leave many very poor families a brutal choice between paying rent or putting food on the table. For many Aboriginal and single mothers, this policy will have serious consequences for the upbringing of their children. Without proper social revenue, many will have to move off of the reserve, threatening their children's knowledge of history, culture, and language.
Raising awareness for Canada's First Nation Aboriginal people is at the forefront at St. Thomas University this month. For more on this event, Frank Molly has a story.
Students and faculty at St. Thomas University have been raising awareness regarding societal and legal grievances between Canada and its Aboriginal peoples since 1965. This year marks the 46th anniversary of Native Awareness Days.
Food and beverages were on hand to help welcome the St. Thomas community to our home on Native land, a theme chosen by the Native Student Council.
We chose that theme to bring awareness to the land issues facing Aboriginal people in Canada because we would like to show the students on campus that it is still an issue.
Faculty of the Native Studies Department gave lectures during the event. Métis Professor Darcy Vermette discussed Canada's failure to implement the Manitoba Métis Treaty. His title, 10,000 to 1 odds, How the House Stacks the Odds Against the Métis, spoke of Métis land rights.
Yeah, the 10,000 to 1 odds was merely a creation of how many recipients there were supposed to be of the Métis land entitlement. I think if we were to actually calculate some odds in some bizarre context, it'd be much worse than that the Métis were ever to actually get a land base out of this.
Hugh Akagi, chief of the Passamaquoddy Indians of New Brunswick, visited the campus to articulate their struggle for legal recognition with Canada.
It's not that we need to be recognized, it's that they need to
recognize us in order to, what would you call it, do the right thing. They've already damaged us by taking away recognition or removing it in their eyes.
Native Studies Director Dr. Roland Krishna held a lecture entitled "It's Not Gonna Happen: The Indigenous Response to Capital in an Era of Unbridled Capitalism," a topic he believes adds heavily to Indigenous struggles around the world.
We're entering an era now where capital is simply going to say, okay, you're right, we did that, so what? What are you going to do about it? And really, the circumstance of us having higher ground in the moral argument, we were here first, it's ours according to your own land, well, yeah, we still think that, but see, we now have the right to kill you if we decide that it's inconvenient for whatever reason to continue having you around.
Keynote speaker Dr. Maureen Matthews, both scholar and an award-winning journalist, arrived on campus to deliver her message about the Aboriginal peoples of Pingazi, Manitoba, and the preservation of their land through UNESCO's World Heritage Site designation.
You only have rights when you don't have power, right? If you had power, you'd just do what you want. When you have rights, you have to claim them from a rights-granting body, in this instance the World Heritage Committee, and there's a performative aspect to that. You have to perform your culture in a way that they judge to be authentic in order to achieve your rights.
Native Awareness Days at St. Thomas is unique in its place, as described by Chief Hugh Akaji.
The universities are a place where everybody can be comfortable too. Like you'll see people here that you probably wouldn't see if you had done it on a reserve. And if you would put it in a, I don't know, maybe another institution instead of Native Studies hall, then probably a lot of Native people wouldn't have come.
Professor Vermette also views the long-standing event as purposeful.
People have to, especially Aboriginal people, they have to create venues where they can speak about issues on their own terms. Right? Native Awareness Days, I hope, doesn't ever stop being that.
Closing ceremonies take place this Wednesday at 4 p.m. at Holy Cross Conference. If you'd like to learn more about the Native Student Council, you can visit their online journal at nativestudentcouncil.wordpress.com. For STU Journalism, I'm Frank Molly.
For many years now, faculty and students have hosted a fundraiser at St. Thomas University for the United Way. Kara Cousins has the report.
Stepping Stone Troubadours were one of the many acts that performed at St. Thomas University's United Way fundraiser. The university has been hosting the event each year for more than a decade. The United Way is a non-profit organization. It supports community programs dealing with homelessness, senior challenges, and family problems. Brian Duplessis has been the executive director of the United Way in central New Brunswick for 1 year.
Well, I think St. Thomas is one of the cornerstones of the United Way campaign and has been for years and years. There is such a natural affinity between all of the work that the agencies do and the real premise upon which St. Thomas is founded. It's a liberal college with a lot of emphasis on social issues.
More than 200 people gathered in Jamestown Hall for an afternoon of food and entertainment. Andrew Titus is an English professor at the university. He hosted the event. Faculty and staff donated items such as artwork, pottery, baked goods, and plants for the silent auction.
By the time I get home, I'm chilled to the bone. I need a cup of hot coffee just to keep me warm.
Some English students performed slam poetry, and musical acts kept the crowd entertained. Many students showed their support for the event. Ashley Rary was one of them.
Well, firstly, I'm in the Peace Studies program, and I think it's important that we actually take an active role in getting involved in the community and actually finding out what's going on in the community, because I find sometimes when you're living on campus it's kind of easy to get really isolated within sort of the university, within university life, and you don't really realize what's going on out in the community.
A lunch was provided by the university and all proceeds went to the fundraiser.
The donations made at the fundraiser will be divided between 36 local nonprofit organizations in Fredericton. Faculty and students at St. Thomas University hope to raise $25,000 this year in support of the United Way. The Fredericton chapter of the organization hoped to raise $1,325,000 this year. For STU Journalism, I'm Kara Cousins.
You may have noticed people in strange robes staying on street corners in Fredericton this week. They are monks of Hare Krishna, and they've come bearing words of peace and spirituality. Mark Logie reports.
Feel free to join along with the chanting. It's called the Maha Mantra. Monks from the International Society for Krishna Consciousness gathered and sang it with some local friends at the Mazaral Gallery on Saturday. They're in Fredericton to spread a message of peace and love.
And we just try to share some spiritual awareness with people and some peace, because everyone is running around like crazy nowadays.
Tirtha Pavana is from Siberia and has been a monk for 3 years. He and his friends have been holding gatherings all across Canada to meet new people and talk about spirituality. Anyone is welcome to come and enjoy the music, exotic food, and a friendly discussion on philosophy. Chris Hallett is a local artist and performer and identifies with the monk's way of life.
Like I just feel better as a person. I feel more, I feel the more I meditate, the more I chant, the more I no longer see this, per se, material world different. So it's like my head's constantly in the spiritual world and I'm stuck here.
For the last week, the monks have been handing out free books and speaking with people on the street. Tirtha was outside King's Place and says that most people aren't very interested in what they have to say. Usually only about 500 people stop and take books during their week-long visits. Their gatherings aren't strictly religious, and people of all faiths are welcome to join. Tirtha says the most important message is love.
Basically, we just try to love everyone, but there is a problem in that, is that it's very hard to love every particular individual. And there is an analogy is that you can try to water the tree by pouring water on every single leaf and branch, or you can just pour the water on the root of the tree and then the water will be transported to all the leaves and branches automatically.
The monks are moving on to the rest of eastern Canada, but plan on coming through Fredericton again in January. So don't be shy when you see people in orange robes standing out in the cold this winter. For STU Journalism, I'm Mark Logie.
Now here's an interesting story. We all know about the Occupy movement, but some people don't join in demonstrations. They occupy walls in Pelly about fighting through poverty and debt crisis.
Hi, Tom. You got your breakfast? No, not yet.
For some, he is a street theater. For others, he is a modern philosopher who uses humor to protest politics.
Want some drachma?
Tom McGrath from Ireland does not belong to the spreading Occupy Wall Street movement. But since the financial crisis hit Greece, he occupies the walls of Plaka, the most popular area in Athens, where he's lived for 10 years now. McGrath says he knows what it's like to be poor. A bohemian in heart, he lives in an abandoned house and makes some art for a small income. But since the crisis begun, can he survive?
I don't. At the moment, I'm not surviving. Nobody's surviving. The economy is terrible. The paintings are not selling anyway, but I earn some money with my little wire bicycles that I make. That's at the moment just keeping me above the water from sinking.
McGrath was the only one in his family to survive a terrorist attack in Belfast in Northern Ireland 30 years ago. He never returned home. His family now is Peter and Sophia. But being part of the everyday life of Greece, he says he witnesses economic terrorism against people from European governments.
How can people respect their country when they don't get enough money to live?
Protests are not the only thing happening in Greece. In the past months, McGrath has seen shops close, friends lose their jobs, and younger Greeks leave Greece in search of a better living.
I don't have another place to go. Greece is my last stop in my life. I never leave.
For artists like McGrath, occupying the walls is indeed a movement of art with a message from the people. For STU Journalism, I'm Macedonia Kutsumbeli.
An infamous Fredericton strip bar is no more. On Saturday, the North Star was demolished. The North Star was notorious for bar fights, drugs, and one-legged strippers. It was popular with members of the Hells Angels, who are rumored to have put in a bid for the rights to the building. Local residents say they could not be happier to see it go.
Kind of happened a long time ago.
Think it's a good thing?
Yes.
Why?
Well, coming from somebody who lives right there, like the fights, the noise, the ruckus, everything. It was just, you couldn't live in an apartment building so close.
You just don't like the industry?
Yeah.
What was the, did you hear about maybe the Hells Angels were going to buy it? Was that?
Yeah, that was a little uncomforting too, considering I have a 11-year-old son.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be so close to that.
So during, like, at night and stuff, you wouldn't let him go outside, or?
Basically, even during the day, because I'd get up to walk him to school in the morning, and there'd be people outside drinking, like drunk or half-cut, so.
What do you think's going to happen now?
I'm hoping that they actually put something good there, like apartments, buildings, or just something.
The property was bought by the city of Fredericton for $500,000 and is now planned to be used for condo development. Every year, between 4,000 and 8,000 people lose their lives to the influenza virus. Flu shots can prevent this, but many people are wary about the needle. Our correspondent Shane Fowler went to a local clinic to get his shot and clear up a few misunderstandings about the process.
It's that time of year again where giving and receiving includes viruses. The most aggressive of these seasonal diseases, influenza, or the flu, will affect thousands of New Brunswickers. The vaccine or flu shot is available to counter the virus, but as head nurse of the University of New Brunswick Student Health Centre, Gwen Ferguson explains, lack of proper information keep many from getting the needle each year.
The flu vaccine does not give you the flu. This is a dead virus, it's not a live virus, and therefore you will not get the flu from this vaccine.
The needle itself is not a guarantee. The quick shot to the shoulder is only effective after 2 weeks in the human body and only against strains that the vaccine is built for. Influenza changes so quickly that new types are always emerging. Scientists update the shot annually to combat these changes, but it's a guessing game to predict which strains will have the biggest impact. But because humans can pass on the disease before they even show signs of having it, a preemptive needle is the only effective way to fight the flu. With most side effects ranging from sore shoulders to headaches, Nurse Ferguson recommends getting the shot for your own health as well as those around you.
If you are around young children under the age of 6 months, or if you're with a senior population, or if you're with a population whose immune system is compromised, you might take in that virus to them, and then they would become very ill. So it is important that if you get the flu shot, at least you don't have to think that you're going to carry those germs into somebody else.
The shot itself costs $15, but it's free for those who are the most vulnerable. For STU Journalism, I'm Shane Fowler.
Thank you for watching Basement Tapes. We'll see you next week.